I am pleased to be joined now by the mayor of Los Angeles, Antonio Villaraigosa. Mr. Mayor, while we await an absolute identification, a scientific forensic identification of the body that was recovered from that burnt-out cabin, is it too early to say Los Angeles and indeed Southern California is breathing a sigh of relief?
No, I think we all are breathing a sigh of relief. We do believe that it is the body of Christopher Dorner, but we don't know for a certainty until we do. Those police officers that were targeted will continue to be protected. That's the least we could do. You know, a lot has been said about these people on the list, but what we don't understand is that it's not just these officers, it's their spouses, it's their kids, it's their family that have been targeted. And I've talked to many of them. This isn't about them from their vantage point, it's about their kids and their families, and we're going to protect them until there is, we're reasonably certain, or absolutely certain rather, that it's him.
And let me ask you, usually in a criminal case, it can take weeks for a positive ID. DNA is not something that happens overnight, unless, of course, there is a case that is so critical, it leapfrogs to the head of everything else. Is Los Angeles helping San Bernardino in availing itself of the resources, the labs, everything they need to put a pin in this case and obviously assuage the concerns of those who were targeted?
The answer is absolutely. We've offered every assistance, but I want to thank the men and women of the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department who worked day and night to find Christopher Dorner, who lost a very brave deputy, have another one who's critically injured. There are a lot of innocent people who have died here, and we're working very closely with all of them. Our resources are available should they need them. But I can tell you this, that we've been working from the beginning very, very collaboratively and closely together to find and bring him to justice, Christopher Dorner.
Mr. Mayor, I know that you are very kind to give us your time right now because you are leaving this interview and you are heading to the funeral services that are planned for a little bit later this morning of Michael Crane, the officer from Riverside, who was one of the targeted victims who was murdered, at this point believed to be murdered by Christopher Dorner. This is his funeral procession as it makes its way through Riverside, and I know that you will be joining up with this funeral procession and those who are mourning the loss of this officer. I want to know how soon you believe we will get the positive ID, and when you say you're availing yourselves in LA to those in San Bernardino to help make that positive ID happen, how soon do you think we will get that information?
Well, in talking to Chief Beck earlier, I used the word absolute certainty. Right now, there's a reasonable belief that it is the body of Christopher Dorner. Once we have a reasonable certainty, maybe not an absolute one, we may pull back from the protective detail. But in terms of an absolute certainty, that could take weeks. I'm not a forensic expert. I can't tell you exactly how long it'll take. It may be much sooner than that. I'll let the experts speculate how long it would take. But as I understand it, it could take hours, days, maybe even weeks.
Well, let's hope that given the utmost importance of this case, they can actually do this quickly without any red tape and without any of the other issues that often backlog that kind of work from happening. Let me move on to the $1 million reward. It was touched upon briefly by Lieutenant Andy Nyman of the LAPD. I understand that it is for the arrest and capture of Mr. Dorner. Well, that's not necessarily possible, but I do know that those two maids who were tied up, who ultimately may have been able to provide the wheels that were eventually in motion towards stopping Dorner, might they qualify for any of that money?
They very well may qualify, and the reason why I spearheaded the effort to raise the money for this reward is Chief Beck asked that we do everything we can to incentivize people to come forward, and I want to acknowledge all of the county and city officials from Riverside and Irvine who helped out here, and of course It may be that these people will qualify. That will be a determination made by the city attorney's office, not me or the police department, as Andy Nyman said. But if they qualify, they'll get the money. It's as simple as that.
Mayor Villaraigosa, it's good that you spoke to those who have been living in fear after this now reign of Christopher Dorner is over, and I think that the family members and friends of Officer Crane, whose funeral you're about to attend, will likely appreciate it greatly as well. Thanks so much for your time, and thank God this is likely over.
Yes, thank God.
Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa joining us from Los Angeles on his way again to that funeral. We showed you the funeral procession just a little bit earlier on. And when we come back, we are going to take you to the scene of the crime. You will hear things that are absolutely remarkable. The gunfire, the showdown, the fire that ultimately may have led to the death of the man who held Southern California at bay for over 2 weeks.